My name is Leonardo B.D. Brito, and this summer I had one of the most magical movie theater experiences of my life. A few months ago, I was visiting our nation's capital, and my friend and I ran into a Regal theater that had 4D movies, and they were showing F9, and you bet your ass I was gonna take advantage of that opportunity. So for the uninitiated, a 4D movie is when the theater reacts to whatever's happening on screen. If you ever went to like a 4D experience at like Universal or a Disney park, it's pretty much that, but for 2.5 hours. The seat I was in was like a massage chair that would move around. You had 2 air cannons right by your head, you had a bunch by your feet, and there were 2 more right in front of you. The seats would move a lot during the movie. Everything from really subtle motion when the camera was moving to super jerky movement to go along with every little motion the car was doing. The back of the theater had these massive strobe lights that would flash when people were getting shot at. But that effect was the worst part of it because the lights were so bright it actually obscured the actual projection of the movie, so we didn't even know what we should be reacting to with these massive strobe lights. It was loud, bright, and stupid, and has completely ruined my ability to watch any of the Fast and Furious movies any other way. But let me clarify, in like a good way though. The Fast and Furious movies are just beyond a parody of what they once were. And F9 is like celebrating all aspects of the stupidest parts of the franchise. The plot was the dumbest thing imaginable. Everything that wasn't a cool car action scene was either a fourth wall meta-analysis of how far the franchise has come, or a cameo from someone from a past movie, or Cardi B for some reason. I have to say, outside of the dumb action scenes, this felt like the weakest Fast and Furious movie we've seen in a long time. The story felt so bloated and was just incomprehensible that it isn't even worth getting invested in, which is why in 4D it was an absolute game changer. For a movie that has so much movement and so much going on, there is no way that you'd be able to fully pay attention to whatever is happening in the story. The whole reason you watch Fast and Furious is to see what dumb reason they came up with to use a car in a dumb scene. I hate to say that this is the one where they phone it in a bit, but this is the one where they phone it in a little bit. For a movie that has so much movement and so much going on, there's no way that you'd be able to fully pay attention to whatever story's happening. The cast of this franchise is so massive with names so famous that getting everyone together to film something must be a logistical nightmare. It feels like the movie can be just piecemealed together sometimes. Every group feels like they have their own plot happening. They almost rarely all interact with each other. Tyrese and Ludacris have their own story involving the Tokyo Drift guys. John Cena feels completely divorced from any part of the movie that isn't related to Dom. Cardi B shows up as a Deus Ex Machina, having never been a part of this franchise before, and it honestly feels like they only had her on set for a day. Like I said, the movie's full of cameos. Helen Mirren comes back for a scene, they use stock footage of Gal Gadot to cash in on her fame from Wonder Woman. These all make sense when looking at it as a massive franchise, but Cardi B's taking it too far. She has no connection to the movie before or after her one scene. She just says she knows Dom and has a full paramilitary squad that is undercover as the villain's secret police. Like, this was one shark jump too much, and I'm talking about a movie that does car fu with a giant magnet and shoots a car into space. The Cardi B cameo was just too much for me, and that kind of sucks because Fast and Furious always felt like they were getting better with each installment, embracing more and more of the stupid, but now they just feel like they're running out of ideas. I know we're getting 2 more movies to wrap up this saga, but I truly wonder if they can even get 2 more out of this cast and story. The trope of this person isn't really dead has been used so much that even Dragon Ball says it's excessive. Everyone in the movie does a good job because they've been playing these characters for so long, but I will admit that something just felt off about John Cena's performance. Usually I love the guy, he has amazing delivery and great comedic timing, including the other big stupid action blockbuster he was in this summer.
If this whole beach was completely covered in dicks, and somebody said I'd eat every dick until the beach was clean for liberty, I would say no problemo.
But something about this movie or this character, the fact that this franchise is literally 20 years old and just introduced to the brother character of the lead that we've never heard of before, makes everything feel really off. What I'm saying is I'm sure whatever problems I'm having with individual character stories at this point isn't necessarily on the actors, but sort of franchise fatigue in general. And you know, whatever China makes them say. Franchises like Marvel deals with this by giving everyone their own movie that gets its own sequel. So whenever the characters are separated in the big crossover, it feels more normal that everyone's on their own. Here, it just feels like it's because shooting schedules couldn't line up. But yeah, as a longtime fan of the Fast and Furious franchise, I have to say I was a bit disappointed in the movie, which is why the 4D experience saved it. The story was an absolute joke, but it is also a story that does nothing, goes nowhere, and is just looking for an excuse to put our characters in cars to do something stupid. Almost. like it's the setup to a theme park ride. So you could just watch the dumb action occurring on screen, or you can experience it yourself with the power of 4D technology! These characters are literal demigods that use cars to fight people so perfectly that they feel invincible. The fact that Dom thinks he's saving someone's life by catching their fall with a car going 90 miles an hour is hilarious. Like, if an explosion knocks you off the top of a truck going 90 miles an hour, you're gonna die whether you hit the concrete of the ground or the metal hood of a car, especially if that car is also going 90 miles an hour. The stunts and the action are all this movie really has going for it, and it feels a bit more poorly directed than normal. But the 4D theater makes up for those shortcomings. Pretty much everything that happened in the movie was reflected in the theater in some way. If there was a sweeping vista shot, then they would play a light breeze and move the seat ever so slightly to simulate the movement of the camera. Gunshots narrowly missing people's heads or shooting around their feet was the air cannons blasting almost perfectly to every shot on screen, or close enough for you to think it's perfect. Every turn, every explosion, pretty much every little thing that happens in the movie, no matter how small the action, had some little part of it included in the 4D experience for extra immersion. And I hate to say that something so lame caused one of the coolest action movie experiences I've had in theaters. I just don't know if I can watch Fast and Furious any other way now. At this point, there is no story to care about. Just wait for a character to show up and desperately try to remember what happened between the last time we saw them and now. The series lives and dies by its action, but you can't just make a one-take action movie involving cars. Yet. The story just feels like a filler episode in these characters' lives, but they do create a wonderful buffer between the tense action scenes. There's a reason why all those attractions at Disney are all just 12 to 15 minutes each. It's because it can get old and exhausting really quick. At the theater, we saw trailers for Venom and Black Widow that were also in 4D, and after the second trailer played, my friend and I looked at each other, remembering that F9 was 2.5 hours, and all we could think was, we've made a huge mistake. But the surprising thing about the effect was its relative restraint. There were moments where the effect was super subtle, and it brings you more into the movie than any other gimmick I've experienced. I did also get a soda and a large popcorn for the movie, and I gotta say, that was a mistake. Surprisingly, no popcorn spills despite the herky-jerky seats, but my stomach, on the other hand? Just a heads up, just because you can get a large Sprite and popcorn for $2 at the movie theater doesn't mean you should. The ticket for a 4D movie like this will set you back a bit, roughly $23 after tax, at least at the theater I went to. But if you happen to have Regal Unlimited, they comped that part of the ticket, so I was able to watch this movie for only $8, and you know what? Surprisingly great way to end your day in Washington, DC. 4D is not for everyone, and is not for every movie. If you want to genuinely pay attention to the plot, this is one of the worst ways to watch a movie. There are so many movies that you know exactly what you want out of them, and Fast and Furious is one of them. I wanted big dumb action scenes that would make me crack up at the absurdity. I didn't want anything I needed to take seriously. So if you have access to a 4D movie theater around you and you're wondering if the experience is right for you, answer yourself these questions. Number 1, is this a movie where the extra dimension will improve the viewing experience or detract from it? Think about the movie you're about to watch, and if this sort of theme park ride would help enhance what the movie's trying to do. Making 4D movies is really expensive and niche, so usually only big blockbusters opt to make a version of it. And every blockbuster doesn't necessarily lend itself to the medium, or could have aspects of the film ruined by the extra effects layered on top of it. Something like Fast and Furious thrives on the big dumb spectacle of its own action. It wants to be as big and excited and loud as it can. Another movie that came to 4D was John Wick 3 Parabellum. John Wick is another big dumb action movie, but its action is entirely different. It is all about the choreography, the slick editing, the camera work, and the performances being given. That is all stuff you miss when you watch it in 4D. Yeah, it would be cool to feel every gunshot that's whizzing past Keanu's head, but the action just wasn't that attuned to what makes 4D work as a medium. So pay attention to the kind of movie that it is before jumping in. Number 2, how much do you want to pay attention to the movie? Because of the medium, you're not going to be invested in the movie the same way you normally would be. You might miss small moments in the action scenes that are very intense, and when everything does slow down, you'll need more time to fully return to the movie. Like I said, you'll be jerked around a lot. There are multiple effects going on, even during slower scenes. If you're really into the MCU and look for details in every part of it, then maybe you shouldn't watch Black Widow in 4D, because you will miss a lot of nuances that goes into these movies. But what nuances are you going to be looking for in Godzilla vs. Kong? Number 3. Do you get sick easily? There's a lot of herking and jerking happening during intense scenes. It isn't as intense as a full-on roller coaster, but if you're someone who gets car sick or seasick, then this could easily make you nauseous. It is the length of an entire movie, and some of the trailers as well. If that sounds like it would be too much for you, then maybe sit it out. Definitely check the length of the movie before you go, because there is a major difference between sitting and watching something for an hour and a half versus 2.5 hours when your chair is constantly in motion. Number 4. Is the extra price going to be worth it? Movies are already expensive. $23 for a single ticket is totally worth the effects you'll get, but you have to ask yourself if the movie you're about to watch is worth that much to you. Fast and Furious and Godzilla vs. Kong are no-brainers for this kind of experience. But do you really want to shell out the extra money to watch The Boss Baby, The Family Business with all of these extra effects? I don't think so. 4D is not an experience I think will work for everyone, but it is something I think everybody should try at least once for one of those really dumb indulgent movie nights. And I want to thank you guys for watching to the end of this video. If you want to see my other thoughts on movies without the weird 4D experience attached to them, just click this playlist right over here, and while I have you here, why not subscribe so you know whenever I post a new video. My name is Leo. I'm gonna go take a nap.